We are back again, baby. We missed a week or two, or a week, or we missed a little bit of time. You know what I'm saying? But we are here now, back again with another Stone DM. But regardless of missing or not missing or whatever, we are here and we are ready to talk some D&D. Last week we ended up playing on Thursday instead of Wednesday. Kind of hard to get some thoughts in on a Thursday if you're not just thinking. Storytelling. Right. But we fought a Hydra, saved the day. The town was destroyed, but the Hydra is defeated, and the town can rejoice and regrow once again, if anybody wants to. But there's nothing left right now, just the road through some ruins, which has probably happened a lot, if I might think about it. You know what I mean? People trying to grow towns, people trying to, have their own claim to fame, and it's always near the road, and something, goes wrong. It's a pretty normal thing, right? So maybe they'll encounter some more ruins, on the other side of the world. It's a little more inhabited for, a little more length of time, I would assume, anyway. But saved the day from Hydra, and then they found another character. Now, I'm not either here or there on DM NPCs or DMPCs at the moment. I never intended to have one. However, there's always going to be some characters where the option is available, and I just put a young bard lady in the mix. She was there in the fray of the city that had fallen, and she kind of just asked if the group wanted someone to recount their travels and their adventures. Some of the group agreed, some of them didn't. But now we are in a position where the group has a DMPC. I don't do anything with it yet, and I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. Like I said, I never intended to give them one, but obviously groups are going to encounter people throughout their travels that go with them, and they're not just escort missions or anything like that. It is an actual player who said, "Ahoy, everybody!" Or not a player, but a person in the world. So they have that now, and they are making their way to learn some lore about one of the characters' existence. They are a druid, and we don't have a lot of those in the world. And this is where you go to exist druidically, I suppose. But they agreed to bring this person with them, and she's a bard, so maybe I'll, if I can remember and stuff, like they went into a cave, and the last time they went into a cave, they fought some oozes, and they ran into what is one of the player's mortal enemies now, is the invisible cube. And I always figure, if they run into another cave, there'll be a percentage chance, or maybe they'll run into said invisible cube again. and it just so happened that it rolled out right this time. Um, and they ended up running into some more oozes and the invisible cube again. Um, I tried to do a thing with one of the characters because he has been, you know, super afraid of this cube and its existence and what it could mean and where it could be and if it was chasing them. And so I had him do like a wisdom saving throw, and he didn't pass it. So I gave him like a 24-hour breakdown period, basically, where like he was he was like incapacitated because of like a mental distraughtness for a little bit, because he was deathly afraid of this thing. And while they did defeat it and they have officially vanquished the cube, he was still affected and hit, and you know the the recollection of this monster. I don't want to use the standard idea of what that is. I'm not sure why. I guess, you know, PTSD from this, or PTS. I don't know if you're supposed to leave. See, this is why I don't want to get into it. D&D, we're putting the D in. God damn it. But yeah, so he had a little bit of a moment where he just had to recollect himself. And then, but before that, they went back to town and they managed to help the refugees and get aid from some other places, because Raylia, you know, one of our player characters, is a princess, so she managed to get a hold of her mother and ask for aid and you know, try to make her case on why she needs to be out in the world a little bit longer, because she has been ordered to return home. So she was trying to make her case on why she needs to be out in the world and doing the things she's doing, but also that these people need help, and that's more important right now. So her mother, Queen Marisol, agreed to send an envoy to the city, you know, the bigger city, because where the elves live, they don't have, you know, all of the supplies that would be needed for, you know, outsiders, or even an abundance of stuff to help many people. So she sent an envoy to the bigger city to send mass supplies to Fort Runoft, where some of the refugees ran. Presumably they'll be getting, you know, provisions in you know, the other city, because there's one road. So one city here was destroyed. They went to this little city, which was like a hunter village, and now it's much bigger. 200 people went from here to here. So that grew that place to almost like 1,000, but not really, because like there's only like, you know, 150 people in town at a time, 200 people, because it's a little hunter village. So it's more like a passing by, come and go, like, you know, truck stop almost. But now it's going to be a little bit more permanent for some people, or not. They could, you know, go back and rebuild the other place. But I mean, I suppose that's all entirely up to me and how much time things take, and what the world itself offers, and what the players may or may not, I guess, worry about. Um, but she was ordered to stay home, and your brother, who is, you know, known throughout the land and is an experienced traveler, is that a bald spot on my chin? On my chinny chin chin. Um, and you know, I'm sending your brother on the way to get you or whatever. So they saved a bunch of people and ended up getting a deadline which only the princess knew about. So she woke up and rushed everybody out the door, you know, and that's when they ran into the cave and the invisible cube, and we ran into the crisis. And it was really a race against time, because they were headed to the dark forest, so they, you know, had to traverse some land. However, her brother has a flying cart, because in this world the royals have griffin carts, and because the griffins ended up making a deal with some of the older races, like the original King Iden of the dwarves, the first king of the land, of the first race of the land. He ended up, one of the first big things he did was make a deal with the griffins, because the griffins were struggling because the hippogriffs were their main food source, but the hippogriffs are a bit larger, but there were also other major beasts who were competitors for these food. But if your prey is bigger than you and you also have other predators in the area, like, you're gonna struggle a little bit. You have the advantage of the flight and stuff, but like sometimes you need a little bit of help, and that's where the dwarves came in, and they ended up making a deal, and now they have an everlasting bond between the griffins and like the royal families, basically. So the queen of the elves has a cart, and she gave it to the brother, and he made way for Fort Runoft, and he got there, and luckily the party disclosed their information about where they were heading and what they might be doing. So he jumped in his cart and he ran across the lands. Ooh, this is fun. I could give like a little what was happening while the group was, doing their thing kind of landscape here. And he rushed across the lands, and while they had to take the road, he got to, fly overhead. And him being an experienced warrior and having a couple other people with him, whatever dangers they may or may not have come across in the desert, homeboy was able to get through it. So when they finally did make it to Magellanis, even though they were in a hurry, a bird's path straight across the land is a little bit quicker than the road's path that follows the winding creeks and rivers and, twists and turns. So he was there in Magellanis, and then he challenged the group. Well, he challenged Lothian, the pale elf, who seemingly ran away with the princess, and who would presumably be the head guard of what is now technically, for all intents and purposes, a royal guard, because if the princess left with them and chose them, and while she may be working alongside them, and it may not be the hierarchy technicality in the group of her being the sole leader and everyone having a ranking position, it is still a guard of people the princess has chosen to be a group with her, who are protecting her, and she is in turn protecting them. But like, and she has taken a lot of steps forward to be the leader of the group, and I don't see that in any bad way at all. There's a little bit of controversy between her and Aggie still. However, I think the princess will end up winning over Aggie in a way where Aggie will eventually not question every decision that the princess makes alone. Because like right now, Aggie's looking for more of a group dynamic, and she's used to whoever may or may not be giving charge not giving beneficial orders for the group, where Aurelia may not always do that, but she's falling into that and becoming that person, and that's a lot of fun to watch. So I think that Aurelia is the leader, even though there is like the dynamic of her being a princess, and people think that they should listen or should not listen, and then also her not wanting that role because she's been avoiding leadership purposes. But like, someone needs to be the decision maker and the voice of the group, and while there are people in the group who could be that, they haven't stepped up to take that responsibility away from the princess. And in doing so, it's really allowed Roxy and Aurelia to really grow at the table and in the game, and become someone like a player who is on like an actual shift in who they are like fundamentally. And we haven't really had a lot of time to experience stuff like that. Like we're coming up we just did 24. Yeah, cuz that's 23. So yeah, we're coming up on 24. We're coming up on 25 sessions in this same game of these people. Um, they've all made it this far, which is like another new thing. When we ran Curse of Strahd, I cut it back a little bit and kind of rushed things along. So I think we got like 23 sessions, 22 sessions out of Curse of Strahd. So this is now the longest game that we've had running. The longest running characters, and the growth and potential for all of the characters just keeps coming up, and we're getting a lot out of everybody, and it's super exciting. Let's get to the stone part. I wasn't even gonna go this long today, you know. Well, not this long, but like that long. So like, you know. Anyway, but crazy animals, man. Crazy animals. So like we're getting some real character growth out of some of the players, especially Aurelia, and that's a lot of fun to watch. I have noticed that I'm getting a little bit lax on trying to move things along, so I've been trying to limit the role play sections, like when they get into it, let them flesh some stuff out, but also push them through if things start to become like, um, you know, in circles, or even just if it starts to get a little bit long because we do got to go. And as good as the role play is, I'll give another moment for it, you know, in a little bit, and we can pick back up on whatever that was, or we can continue it while we travel. But we also need to be getting to places, and I've been worried that we haven't been doing, you know, maybe enough each session. So like I have been in the last couple trying to like, okay, and like, you know, move them along without forcing the end of a conversation, but also pushing them into the ability to have conversation in a little bit and get us to where we need to be, you know. It's all a balance. It's, you know, never easy. So you know, it just takes time. But also some roleplay things are, you know, a little more important than others. If they're diving into some character stuff, or some of the character growth moments, you got to let those play out a little bit more than you do just like which direction are we going to go kind of thing. Because if you give it enough time, anything can devolve into people role playing basically nothing. But and what I mean by that is they'll be sitting there in character, and they'll be role playing, but they're not role playing a game. They're role playing just one immediate scenario. So now the game doesn't get to, you know, exist because we got stuck here for, you know, 15 minutes instead of just saying, you know, one thing in character, and allowing that to cover 15 minutes of dialogue that never, you know, said anything or led to anything, and just, you know, continued to happen. And I'm not saying that all role play and dialogue needs to lead into a character development or like have a purpose, but when we have dialogue with none of that, we only need, you know, a minute or two of it. We don't need a lot of time, and that's things that I'm still learning how to decipher and allow, because sometimes the meaningless stuff will devolve into bigger character stuff really quickly. So like, you just gotta let people talk and you gotta let people role play. But also, if you only have so many sessions of that and they don't get to a place and they don't accomplish things, are we even playing the game at that point? You know what I mean? And I want to ensure that we are also, rolling dice and playing the game. And that's why I introduced some more skill check challenges with some of the travel in this place coming up, the Dark Forest, because um, long distance travel is pretty monotonous as far as how we figure out what we do. What the outcomes and stuff are different, and the things that happen with it are different. And I feel like I have twisted it up enough and allowed different scenarios enough for it to not be boring. And when we get to places, we spend enough time to where when we do long term travel, it's all different again. So I think I'm doing okay on that balance. They do a really good job of keeping themselves invested and wanting to know about the places they're at and the things that they're doing and the directions that they may go next. So it's pretty easy, honestly, to like tell the story and have things prepared and have the direction. But just making sure that I keep myself refreshed on scenarios and monsters and different encounters in the wild. Um, but also, I have to allow them to have a lot of creativity, because some of these encounters they'll be able to get around a little differently instead of, you know, just one flat out way. Like this last session, we ended with they entered the dark forest, and I had two different paths, and each path is going to have different things. But the first path ended up having a vine course. You had to, athletics check to hold yourself up and grasp, not like swing through the vines like, you know, the monkeys do, but more like, because you got armor and stuff, so more like, grab the vine and transfer the vine. So I figured it was more like an athletics thing. I probably could have went acrobatics, but there will be acrobatics and athletic stuff coming up, and I suppose it could be either or, pick one. But I wanted to kind of like put them in a situation where maybe they're not going to be good at it, and then the next one they'll be a little bit better at it or worse at it, and like, this place is going to come with traveling consequences and stuff, and different systems for that. But the first rope course we had, everybody made it through swimmingly except for the DMPC. Gwendalia is her name. Uh, she's a tiefling bard. She's pale purple, and her name is Gwendalia Halfhorn because one of her horns only grew in like halfway. She's about 24. She's got stark black hair, a lot of freckles. She's kind of pretty, but she's also kind of a little thing, so she's not very strong. So she ended up failing twice on the rope challenge and ended up falling 50 feet. And I just do a d6 for every 10. I don't know if there's like a cap or anything on that, but I remember reading somewhere it's like a d6 for 10 feet. She almost died. She ended up making it, and they ended up helping her. But I'm not sure if they're gonna want to keep her around after that. But it was kind of fun that everybody but one of the players went, and then they sent Gwendalia next, and Gwendalia was the only one that failed. But she failed right in front of our princess, who would probably struggle the most. Uh, you know, Ideally, but on paper, I'm assuming she's probably pretty strong as far as athletics go. But I thought that was pretty fun. So everybody made it. I'm real happy about that. We still got a few different skills challenges to get through, a couple different checks. It should be fun. A couple different scenarios outside of just combat. But there could be some combat too, depending on what they get into. Um, we're finally getting into a new area of Mirage. Uh, well, not. I mean, yeah, we are because even Noken and how much of a surprise going there was. Like it's still pretty close to it. Like we've only done the east side of the map, and even when they had to go to Hagglesworn and I wiped it out with a Hydra, like so far the furthest they have made it is like midpoint from the east coast because we started all the way on the east. No, on the west. Yeah, we start on the west, so we haven't left that coast yet, really. So we're starting to get into the dark forest. But like, what I mean by that is a lot of this area is already here and on paper, and the things that exist here are already like, I mean, pretty well fleshed out, especially for the amount of time that they've gone back and forth and back and forth. Um, like we know about Modulanus. Um, we don't know all of the NPCs. We don't know all the store. What like we know about it. We know everything about Fort Runoft. We've been to the training academy a few times, and those are the three big places over there. Um, and like, so it's all fleshed out. A lot of my preparation and stuff like that is going into like finding different encounters. But all the PCs, like all the PCs are pretty much done. Like I've had them, but now we're getting into the Dark Forest, and after that we'll be going who knows where. Possibly Caresti, the home of the elves, or we could be going, you know, back to Modulatus or back up the west coast. Uh, but we got many places there, and there's many different adventures that can be had in this world, and I got a lot of different ideas for places. Um, I had asked them beforehand if they were interested in like another like long term campaign esque thing, like the training academy was, where it's going to be like 8 sessions of like the same area, or maybe even more, of solving a problem and getting to the bottom of it with this one area, or if they wanted to kind of get to some of the stuff that's already been laid on the table, because like we do have a lot of stuff, and they were kind of interested in seeing the what could be. So instead of like throwing another big scenario at them, like I had ideas for the town over from Hagglesworn was going to be like another big thing that really fell into a couple of their classes pretty well. But I'm going to save that for later, and let them kind of flesh out a couple things and dive into a couple things that they maybe want to do, and then hit them with a, oh no, this happened, because the world is still existing and there are still many things happening. But not all of them have to happen immediately, and that's kind of what I was talking about in some of the earlier ones, is where I don't want to give them 5 dire situations where they can only get to one, and now I'm taking away some of their player agency and ability to choose, and just making the world suck. Like I'm gonna hit them with a couple, and there's always gonna be that thing luring over their head, but like also sometimes the world isn't falling apart or in chaos or like you know in need of these heroes. Sometimes they can go be who they need to be, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out as a DM, how to time all that, and it all just comes down to balance. So, uh, yeah, That's really all I got. I hope you guys had fun. Go check out the All Bear Crew. Puff, puff, pass it along, and don't forget to smile, baby. Thoughts on a Thursday is back.